Hi, I'm Jason Bellamy, APTA's Director of Web and New Media. We're here in Salt Lake City, Utah. In just a few days, APTA Conference will begin. We'll be giving you some video dispatches that update you on APTA Conference. But in just a few hours, right here, APTA's House of Delegates will be in. And I'm here with Sean Soper, APTA's Speaker of the House. So Sean, first of all, can you describe, for somebody who doesn't know, what the role is of the House of Delegates for APTA?
Sure. The House of Delegates is the policy-making body for APTA, and because APTA is the largest physical therapy association in the nation, it really helps guide policy for the profession, not only of the association. And so the House is responsible for determining really the direction of our future. We set policy and make decisions about how we want to spend our resources and how the things that are going to be our priorities to work to improve our profession, ultimately improving the care we give to our patients.
So you set policies through motions. There are 31 motions coming to the House this year. Let's do how a bill becomes a law, APTA style. So those motions, where do they come from? How do they get to the House floor? What happens between somebody coming up with this idea to now to what's going to happen over the next couple of days as people discuss these motions and then make decisions on them?
Sure. So you're right. The way policy gets set is that we do that through a series of motions that come before the House. And the motions can come from a variety of places. They can come from any of the components can bring a motion forward, the chapters or the sections. The PTA caucus, the student assembly can bring a motion. And the motions typically are generated out of thoughts and ideas and an understanding of what we need in terms of policy or actions that we need to take in order to accomplish our goals. The board also can bring motions to the House, and the board sometimes is bringing motions that they have determined need to come forward because of what the board's understanding is of our priorities. But sometimes the House has given the board work to do through a request for information or through a task force, and the board will bring information back. An example of that this year would be the vision motion that we're going to be discussing. So that motion came to the House. The House made a decision that they charged the board to bring back a new vision. The board created a task force and therefore brought a new vision back. And so we'll be discussing and debating that this year and making a decision. So that's one way that can happen. In terms of how a motion gets to the floor of the House, once the idea is generated, then we have a group called the Reference Committee, and the Reference Committee helps delegates craft language. So the delegates come to the Reference Committee typically early in the fall or during the winter, and they began to talk about, this is my idea, this is our concept, this is what we're trying to make happen. And between the delegates and the Reference Committee, they determine what sort of language needs to be crafted. Then the delegates work with that language. There are several deadlines and dates that have to be met in order for the language to be finalized and put out to the delegates and the membership in the early spring prior to the House. The motions then come to the House. The delegates have the opportunity to discuss the motions prior to the actual House session. We have a House of Delegates community. This year we had the web campaign, the social media campaign, so we had lots of ways for members to interact. And then the delegates arrive at the House of Delegates and they bring the motion to the floor, they debate the motion, and then they take an action on the motion. They either adopt it, they defeat it, they amend it and adopt it or defeat it. They might refer it to the board of directors. There are a number of things that can happen. And then once the decision is made, then the action is taken.
Great. So by the way, if you want to see any of those motions, you can go to apta.org/HOD/2013. All the motions are there. And as you said, there'll be discussion on the House floor, but there's also a lot of work that goes on beforehand just to get to the House floor and be ready for that discussion to happen. So that's really the process for APTA as a whole and for the House as a whole. Let's talk about this next few days for you. This is your 5th House of Delegates. You're sort of part referee, kind of part auctioneer. You're kind of part chaos controller. What's this like for you personally? It's 2.5 days on your feet, no breaks, constant action. What's it like for you personally?
Well, it's definitely intense, no doubt about it. We start getting ready for next year's House pretty much the week after this year's House ends. And there's so much preparation. There are a million details that go into the House. And so not only do we have to get everything ready in terms of the motions that are coming, but the House is also when we elect our candidates. We elect our board of directors and our nominating committee. So all of the candidate activity has to happen as well. So we start getting ready very early on, and for me, it just kind of builds. And in the spring, it just becomes incredibly intense. But you know what? It's an amazing experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Once we get on site, then I'm pretty much, into the wind for a few days. I tend to do a lot of preparation. I don't like to leave anything to chance, so I think I wear out some of my colleagues that way. I want to have a plan and a backup plan for pretty much any eventuality that could happen. So there's definitely a lot of preparation, because once we get here, we can't leave anything to chance, and we have to be ready to just roll.
So I want to talk about that preparation in a second, because I know something. But before that, as all this is happening and decisions are made, are you processing those as a physical therapist at that point, or is it just all about process? How long does it take before it sinks in really what happened at the House for you as a leader, as a PT?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, one of the important roles, because of my role as speaker, it's very important that I remain neutral on all of this. And so I don't take any position on any motion. I really oftentimes don't even get involved in the discussion around the content from a pro-con sort of perspective, but rather just making sure that the language is clear, and that the language that, if we adopt it, is going to be the language that fits in our policies, that makes sense, that we understand it, that it can live in our policies for a period of time. So in terms of an opinion, I stay incredibly neutral. I am processing the information from the perspective of a physical therapist, from the perspective of a board member, from the perspective of a member, in order to make sure that it makes sense, it fits, it's the right thing, assuming that it's adopted. But I stay very neutral, because once I get here, it is all about process. It's about making sure that a motion gets a fair read on the House floor, that people understand the process to move their motion forward, and that everyone has the opportunity to weigh in with their opinion, and that the debate unfolds in a timely and efficient way, and that's really my entire focus.
So let's talk about your focus on process and scenarios. I know about the scenarios book. Describe what that is to me.
The scenarios book is, because we use parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules is a 600-page book that's incredibly complicated, and things happen very fast. And so when I was first elected, I made the decision to create the scenarios book so that I would have at the ready sort of language for any eventuality. So I created a book. I poured back through old House of Delegates tapes, listened to other speakers and language that they used, got a lot of reference materials, and put together a book that enables me to know that if someone amends a primary motion, a main motion with a primary amendment, what I need to say and do. If someone moves a secondary amendment, what do I say and do? And it's basically in decision tree format, so that I can, if someone, depending on what happens, I know exactly what the next steps are.
Well, it's very impressive. If you've never seen it, you can watch it this year from afar. We're live streaming the House of Delegates for the very first time. You can go that one of two ways. You can go to apta.org/livestream. All members will be able to watch that live. We'll have an archive of the House too up for 30 days where you can watch portions of the live stream as well. You can also go again to apta.org/HOD/2013. All the information's there. We will be doing dispatches like this throughout the week from Salt Lake City. For that, you can go to apta.org/conference. I hope you follow along. I hope you watch this. Sean, good luck to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
And that's all for now from our first dispatch from Salt Lake City. Thanks.